And when I came out of the church, I had a couple of psychiatrists that wanted to buy some luxury paintings. And I felt this is so indoctrinated. I'd already left the Sea Org. And I felt, I'm, I'm in bed with the enemy. I can't sell them. I'm an art dealer.
We are Myth Vision. Welcome back to Myth Vision Podcast. Your host, Eric Lambert. Ladies and gentlemen, we're taking another step into the Scientology world with someone who has credentials like a 4-star general in the U.S. military when it comes to this cult, this church, the Church of Scientology. Ladies and gentlemen, Karen de la Carriere is joining us today. I hope I said that with flair. You are a wonderful figure and a spokesperson on exposing the harms of this cult. However, I want you to introduce us, maybe, if you will, briefly into what we might be discussing today, and maybe you have something to say.
Okay, just before we get going and give you some revelations, I just want to make a little pitch for Derek. All these things happen from goodwill from the heart. There's no monthly paycheck. There's no weekly paycheck. There's no paycheck at all. So if you could just click and send Derek, it can, big or small, it doesn't, you could give just $5 a month as a patron. Just be a contributor to the motion. Not just a spectator. A spectator just sits there watching and runs. Be a contributor. Feel you're actually doing something. And that's what keeps the show on the road.
Thank you.
Derek would greatly appreciate it. I wanted to just ask you that. And now we're ready to give you data, knowledge. Because I was in 40 years, I can condense the knowledge into wisdom. Wisdom means I've summarized a lot of stuff into key points for you. So what I tell you not only is truth, but it's the essence. So taking out the fluff and froth, we subdue this down to key points for you.
This is powerful, Karen, because you were on the ship. Okay, I can't express this. If you're coming into this whole topic of Scientology like me, you're a newborn baby. You don't even know the world, right? It's a whole world of its own, and you don't even know this world. Karen lived this world most of her life. And even outside of it, she still lives it to some degree because she's helping others try to be educated in this. You were on the ship with L. Ron Hubbard. You went all the way to OT7. You were married to the president of the international, what is it? The International
Church of Scientology International.
I mean, you really were top. It's like a cardinal in the Catholic Church. You know, not quite the Pope, but, you know, right there, just turning their back on it. And then not only turning their back on it, speaking out about it in talking about all the fundamental problems of this thing. So, Karen, I know whatever you say is going to have value, and it's going to have a lot of, like you said, wisdom in understanding this church you've been part of most of your life. So the first thing I'd like to ask you, basic, is how could you, an educated person, brought up in a well taken care of home, and your lifestyle was great, how could you get involved in something like this? You know, like, it doesn't add up.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I wanted to believe in something. The thought of just blackness, death, being in the ground with maggots slowly eating you, or maybe your body was just shredded with great heat and you were gone. I hated that. I wanted to believe. I love that phrase, prison of belief. You have to be so careful in what you believe. Once you believe, you're screwed. You're hooked.
Mhm.
You believe. And so often, was it Simon and Garfunkel that said in that song, a man believes what he wants to believe and disregards the rest. You see? I wanted to be. Now, I may vary a little bit with your audience because I do believe that one does live on, as a lot of ancient religions like Buddhism. I do believe in reincarnation. I do believe that the soul lives on. I really do. And I've had what we call deja vus, where I've had complete recall. I don't care if you guys laugh at me. I have experienced past lives. So that's my belief. That's my
Right,
belief.
right.
Now, everyone can have a belief. Scientology is a whole different trip because it is a control. Once they get you.
How'd they get you? How did they get you, Karen? What happened? Did your mom or dad get sucked in and they went, "Oh, this is great," and you were raised in it, or did one day you came across it?
No. I was dating someone and he, put his hands on my shoulders and said, "Look, if you want a relationship with me, you got to get some Scientology counseling. This is an ultimatum. There's no power of choice here." I really liked this guy. His name was Barry Fairburn. This was in London, and I wanted. I liked him. What do I care if I sit and have some therapy? It was neither here nor there. But it, I got enlightenment. I've told you the questions can be very clever, and you can have a bright moment. The bright moments are transitory.
Right.
They do not give you any stability that going forward in life, you are now in a higher rate. That's what they sell you. We're going to take you higher. We're going to make you into an enlightened being. So I was pretty affluent, and I gave them money, and I did courses. And as you already said, I ended up on the ship with L. Ron Hubbard. And one of the things of Scientology, which is so deceptive, it's such a lie,
Yeah.
is that they preach and prattle. Man is basically good. That's the opening statement in their creed. Their creed is their biblical doctrine. Man is basically good.
But do they actually believe that?
Well, it's a good challenge, Derek, because 80% of Scientology is trying to find you're evil. What have you done? It's much tougher than a Catholic confession. Much tougher. It's an interrogatory on the e-meter. And they want to find, there are procedure after procedure to find out your criminality. Part of that is to get dirt on you, to use later if you try to leave or step out of line. Part of it is because they will go through every confessional to find what you did. Now, they say man is basically good. But a huge percentage of Scientology is to find your evil based on the premise that if you confess and confront your evil, you will rise to be a better person.
So let me probe. I have to probe. This is a really interesting point because I see a lot of parallels to other harmful ideologies, but man is basically good. They sell you, oh, you're really good. That's why you're here, because you're a good person.
Yes.
Hint, hint, let me get you hooked on the drug, and now you're going to want to come back. Here's the thing as well that we talked about on the last episode that I think is important to bring up in this. There seems to be this bombshell situation that plays into this. We're basically good, but I'm gonna spend all your money trying to find the Thetans and absolve you of these evil Thetans out of your being. But you're really a good person, but I'm going to try and get all these evil things out of you. So you're separate from the Thetans, if you will, if I'm pronouncing that correct. And they're anti-psychiatric psychology, anti-shrink. What's going on here? I saw Tom Cruise have a mental breakdown on the news, arguing with the host about ADHD medicine, and you name it. You don't know the history. And when he said you don't know, from listening to many of your friends that talk about this, he's not referring to a historical case per se. He's talking about the myth of Scientology going back millions and millions of years to the alien warlord and all of that. That's what he's really referring to, from what I understand. Am I wrong?
No. You make just some really. It was Matt Lauer. He said, you don't know the history of psychiatry. I do. Right?
Yeah.
No. Tom has lost his way.
I know.
He just considers David Miscavige a god. I'll send you a link and I'll put it in top comments. Tony Ortega did a thing where John Rousseau debriefed how Tom Cruise feels about Miscavige, the current dictator. Oof. Mm-hmm. Anyway, good and evil.
Yeah.
Scientology, because of Hubbard, has a huge vendetta and hatred for anything psychiatric. Now, it's true that lobotomies were a disaster, cutting lobes and people became vegetables. So psychiatry did have a really bad spell of harming, not helping. But Scientology considers, I'm an international art dealer.
Right.
And when I came out of the church, I had a couple of psychiatrists that wanted to buy some luxury paintings. And I felt, this is so indoctrinated. I'd already left the Sea Org. And I felt, I'm in bed with the enemy. I can't sell them. I'm an art dealer, and I couldn't sell images to psychiatrists. And I looked into them and the internet and studied them. And the guy was a forensic psychiatrist. He testified in court. He did psychological autopsies on why the homicide went that way. He analyzed it from a psychiatric viewpoint. Mm-hmm. If you smash someone 116 times with a knife, there's a psychiatric profile that a psychiatrist can determine what was going on mentally. And this couple, I found out they supported an animal shelter, a rescued dog. They were good people. They donated. They weren't evil at all. I did sell them the Kincaid paintings, but the indoctrination goes deep. You are taught to shiver against the evil. Saying the word psychiatry could practically contaminate you. You need to go take a shower because you connected with that evil.
Wow. I relate to that. When I was indoctrinated, extremely fundamentalist Christian, I wouldn't drink Starbucks coffee, because Starbucks supported the LGBTQ community. And you know what I mean? Like, I was silly. Well, that's what I thought. And I was like, I will not buy products from people who support things that I'm against. But going into the psychiatrist, the shrink stuff, if you will, for just a second, the myth, this old alien warlord myth that plays into the psychiatry stuff is really the origin of this comes from L. Ron Hubbard being embarrassed and shunned by scientific communities, looking at him as a pseudo quack job of a thinker, creating some type of electrode type of thing and saying, oh, I figured out cures for this. And they're looking at him going, no, this won't pass scientific analysis. You didn't invent anything that's actually practically true, real, in the sense that it's actually going to solve these problems you claim it is going to. And he took it out in his own media world against this entire thing. And he was so well of a writer, science fiction writer, from what I tell, he created this entire myth that takes it all the way back to millions of years ago and is saying this war's been happening from back then, even though it was his own war against modern science, from what I could tell.
Well spoken. I'll tell you something, Derek. I was put through a torture program, where I was supposed to run around a pole. A lot of people, we all got the same, it wasn't just me. 1982, run around a pole in Florida sun, middle of summer, 12 hours a day.
What?
12 hours a day. I'll send you a couple of pictures.
Okay.
You had to run around a pole, and this was supposed to be spiritual. And I studied, and Mike Rinder posted on his blog the actual document based on why you would have to do this. Hubbard wrote that several billion years ago, the psychiatrists on a planet called Farsec created so it all went back to psychiatry. So I had to run around a pole 12 hours a day with swollen ankles, my knees, because psychiatrists 5 billion trillion years ago on front.
Oh my God.
That was a wake up. I realized this is not what I signed up for. But let me tell you, a bombshell, that was a good word you used, bombshell. After years, I went into agreement that psychiatry, people who've had electric shock and all that, they must be evil. I really swallowed all that. Now here's the bombshell. I used to meet with a guy called Marty Rathburn, who was second in command. I used to meet with him in a hotel just by the Los Angeles airport. And he said, Karen, sit down and take some deep breaths of oxygen. Hubbard ordered Sarge. Sarge was a nickname for his caretakers. Everyone has a handyman. You have your contractor or handyman, that Mr. Fix-It guy. He ordered Sarge, his Mr. Fix-It guy, to build an e-meter, or just to make additions to an existing e-meter, that would electric shock him so violently because he has a BT, a body Thetan, attached spirit that is evil. And he can't get rid of it. He's not able to exorcise it out of his system. So he wants this electric shock machine built to give such a jolt to get rid of this spirit, but it would also terminate his life.
Oh,
and I suffered an implosion spiritually and then an explosion, because with all that training I had, burning the midnight oil, 60 to 80-hour weeks, earning a pittance, studying Hubbard, listening to Hubbard, listening to the evil of electric shock. Electric shock was the pinnacle evil of psychiatry. See, we're telling you psychiatrists, look what they do. They electric shock people. They scramble these BTs. All these attached spirits get scrambled like scrambled egg. Electric shock.
Wow.
And then Hubbard orders an electric shock machine. First of all, suicide is considered an evil purpose. It's evil because you should want to survive. You shouldn't want to knock yourself off. And there was Hubbard, the great guru, asking his assistant to build a shock machine, which, and there are a couple of videos online. You don't have to take my word for it. I'm gonna post. The videos are pretty short, but the guy who was asked to build the shock machine was interviewed by Pulitzer Prize winner author Larry Wright. He wrote the book Going Clear.
Ah, okay.
And Larry grabbed Sarge while Sarge was still alive. He died a few years ago. Good, he got him on video to tell the whole story of how Hubbard ordered him to build the shock machine. So just to finish the story, we have to make this pithy. Yeah. He wouldn't do it. He was dragging his feet. He was nudged and pressured. And he built one that would just give Hubbard a jolt, painful enough, but not kill him. And Hubbard got that. And then it was painful enough. He never then said, make me a stronger one. He dropped it. But the thought that the guru I believed in wanted electric shock to handle an evil beat that he wasn't able to. Even if the hypothesis was that he did have a spirit, that he couldn't.
I have to ask you something about this, Karen. Because
go ahead.
This is so important. I've been noticing this with a lot of cult leaders, and I wouldn't be shocked if your answer is yes. Building up the question to ask. Do you believe that L. Ron Hubbard actually believed in his own BS?
I do. I do believe it. I believe it. You know, when a person goes into an altered universe and they're a little crazy, you see someone pushing a shopping cart and he's talking to the wind. He's homeless. He really believes that the wind and the air is listening to his babble as he talks. When you enter a wacko world, you don't know you're hallucinating. If you did, you would go, I'm being delusionary here.
Mm-hmm. Or you should.
No, I believe Hubbard did believe. You see, I think he did have a few breakthroughs, and I think early on he did want to help, but he told his high-tech terminal, David Mayo, senior case supervisor, very, very high up in the tech hierarchy. And he told David, I have such a lust for power and money. I crave. He admitted this. And David Mayo was stunned. That was David Mayo's bombshell. My bombshell was, after believing in the evil of psychiatry and how electric shock was the ultimate evil, that Hubbard would want electric shock and to kill himself, which is anything but a noble purpose.
Wow.
That was my bombshell. David Mayo's bombshell was Hubbard said, I crave power and money. I crave it. And in those days, once a week, $1 million in cash was being sent to him in his hideout called Creston Ranch near San Luis Obispo, Northern California. David Miscavige rose up the ranks because he pampered Hubbard with $1 million in cash every week, $100 bills, $100 bills. The suitcase would go to the drop location, and Pat Broca would pick it up, and Hubbard got $1 million. This was scooped out of all the different satellite, all the people who bought books, this and that, scooped out $1 million. So when Hubbard died, there are a couple of conflicting reports, but my husband writes the Scientology Money Project. I think he said, and he's got all the documents to back it up, Hubbard the Guru died with something like $540 million.
Wow.
Which went to Church of Spiritual Technology. Oh my God, the corporate shenanigans. Church of Spiritual Technology licenses for money Religious Technology Center, RTC, to allow them permission to use Hubbard's works.
Wow.
It's a corporate maze.
Yeah.
So RTC then licenses, and orgs have to pay nice hard cash for permission to use Hubbard technology. It's a spider web of cannibalization where the bigger fish eats the little fish and sucks out the protein of the little fish. This is how it went. So that was truly my bombshell.
Wow.
But I liked what we touched on, and I really liked, you get in the church thinking, they're going to take my goodness and make my goodness better goodness. So if I have good features, they'll strengthen that because I'm in therapy with them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, come on, Derek. They want your evil. What about in your fundamental evil? Did they go after your hidden little shenanigans? Did they do that?
Well, you know what's weird? I think there was more honesty in our version of it, to be honest, because the idea that we're innately good, that we're born good, or we have goodness, that wasn't in my Christianity. My version of Christianity said we are born wicked, we are born evil, and only God and his spirit can save us. And so you're born this wretch. They use the term wretch. You're a wretch. You're a wicked, horrible, evil person. And your heart is desperately wicked, which in, the way we understood heart, there's some interesting things. We conflate our mind with heart in antiquity because they didn't think the mind is where the thoughts come from. They thought it was literally somewhere in an organ down here. But either way, it's really interesting to hear because they view you as this nothing. You're horrible, and that God would even care to save you. You need to be thankful that he chose you. The version I eventually went to was a version called Calvinism, where God predestined people, and he chose me, I thought. And this is, one of the things that they believe is that really the only good you have ever, even after God's spirit comes to you, is that God is living in you. You are not good. And even Paul, has these ideas. I am a greater sinner than all of you, he talks about. Like he's the biggest sinner. I'm the worst of you all. I'm the most horrific. So that's the kind of view. At least when I say honesty, I don't mean that that's true. What I'm saying is they're not trying to pretend you're good, and then their entire system is a lie, acting like, well, you're good, but we're going to spend all our time trying to fix the bad about you. Well, if I'm good, then why do I need to be fixed? What's the problem? And my worldview was also a horrible one as well.
Wow, that was incredible. I grew up in Church of England and sort of Catholic version, and there are hymns where you you ask for mercy because you're a miserable wretch.
Mhm.
That's the line. The one where you're this. You see, before you ask, why did you? You're highly educated. You're not a dummy. You weren't
Right.
just fallen off the turnip truck. Why did you get sucked into that? Well, I thought about the concept of God a lot. And I thought, they're saying God will forgive you. God will elevate. God. Therefore, he would have to have mercy and kindness and huge generosity and bigness of heart if he's going to do all this.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you look at just horrific orphans who are beaten, pedophiles who invade children's privates, when you look at the absolute darker side of people who do all this, why would a so-called merciful God
Right.
just allow that much? It didn't add up for me.
Right.
That God could be sitting somewhere in the sky and didn't even have the power to slightly amend very gross conduct. Children who are starving in parts of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Just women who are being raped nightly by the soldier. None of this. So to me, God didn't seem to be effective. Either he was so great that he could create and he could create the biggest effects, or he had no causation level. He couldn't be the source of anything because he left everything alone. Based on me trying to fathom all that out, I came to the conclusion, you see, in Scientology, there is no God. Well,
it's not necessary.
I don't know if we're reaching the end of our half hour, but this is another bombshell.
Yeah.
Scientology says you are actually God. Keep paying us. We'll take you higher. And you'll come to the realization that you, me, everyone, in a joint co-create. We created the planets way back then in some earlier existence. We are God. There's this woman who does the impersonation of Bart Simpson. And there's a lovely little video clip I should send you where she said, yeah, I know I'm giving Scientology a lot of money. Because I'm striving to be God. And that's what Scientology has promised, that I will be. Now, that's a big celebrity, the voice of Bart Simpson, who says it in black and white.
Interesting.
So there's another spin. I mean, imagine.
What level did you have to be at, if you can remember, to know that we created the universe or the planets in billions and trillions of years ago? What level was it when you found out a lot of this really strange science fiction, but to you it was facts? Right.
Derek, that's confidential. What they tell you is, don't ask questions like that.
Right.
All will be revealed. Just keep going. Believe. Just believe. All these answers will appear, and you will get every answer you need about God and the Supreme Being. And when people walk in the door to get their money sucked out, they're never told there is no God in Scientology. Never. They're never told you're just infested with 400 million spirits all glued to you and your body. They're never told any of that. That's the bait and switch. That's what's so dishonest. If you ask questions like, well, do you worship? Do you have is there a God? They go, you're asking a very sensitive question. Secret. You got to stay with us. And
Right.
as you do the levels, all will be revealed.
Yeah, the same.
So you're so you went straight to one level.
Yeah.
They never answer that. The bait and switch is shush.
So to answer that question though, when do you remember finding out what level were you at that you figured out the secrets? And I know there are probably different secrets for different levels, but the science fiction stuff, the idea of
OT3.
Xenu, yeah.
OT3 is the Xenu. And you know, Derek, it's such an earthquake that some people look at it and they walk out the door never to be seen again. They just, I mean, they got some gain, they communicate better, they had a little this and that, a little buzz, and then they read this, and it's like, what wall, what universe do you live in? Are you really going to make me swallow this?
Oh,
there is a percentage. Gosh. There is a percentage. And then there are others that are just struck. And if they say, I don't know if I can quite swallow this, some people are more polite and in a dignified manner try to.
Interesting.
The cult response is the only reason you cannot have this is you've got too much charge, baggage, negative energy. We need to strip off more. You're overcharged. Your degree of awareness into Hubbard's truths is directly proportionate to us relieving you of your negative charge. And so you go, oh, it's my negative charge that is so clouding my awareness and perception. So it always points back to, you're not up to it. You're overloaded with trauma. We need more money. You need $100 more.
This is wild. This is where the bite model comes in and how these cults really get you. And you do it so well. Everyone I've talked to that watched you really enjoyed our last episode. I know for a fact they're going to enjoy this one. There's so much we did not talk about, Karen, and we will talk about. Make sure you guys go check out her YouTube channel as well. All of that's down in the description. Give us a like here. Let us know what you think of this conversation, because there's so many questions I could ask Karen, but our time is up for today. Karen, would you have anything you'd like to say before we close?
You know, exposing myths is a good thing, is a really, really good thing, Derek. I'm happy you have this channel. You know, whether you believe you just live your 75 years or whether you believe, certain things are so vital. Wisdom, knowledge, and truth should a high priority. You can always eat a ham sandwich. You can always kick a ball. But to get a little nugget of truth and realize that scams are not just internet, you know, buy this rubber ball and put it in your washing machine and your wash will be cleaner. Scams can be what gets ingrained in your mind. Derek, I'm so happy you pluck out your questions. Are very clever. I'm so happy you get to the essence.
Am I planting my probes into your mind? And
yes.
Good,
absolutely.
good. Well, I hope I did the same for the audience as you answered and really elucidate this information in a way that no one else does that I hear. And I really enjoy that coming from you. My parents were really happy.
More fundamental than good and evil. So good and evil. This is a basic good and evil. Derek, thank you so much. Hey, audience, if you've come this far in the show, that means you watched it all. Please click a little donation for Derek.
Oh, you rock.
Participant to keep the show on the road. Don't just be a spectator that you watch and hit and run. Contribute to the motion. Thank you very much. I'll be back.
You rock. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, go subscribe to our channel. We love you, Karen. Let's do this again. And never forget, we are Myth Vision.